CQ, CQ, CQ. This is Kilo 5 Charlie Lima Mike, and you are listening to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. My name is Curtis. I am your host today. My call sign is Kilo 5 Charlie Lima Mike. Today we're going to be talking about computers and what they can do for you in your ham radio shack. So before we get started, let's get this out of the way here. You can find the show notes for today, as well as further reading on this topic, at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/7. That's the number 7. And, go there. You can read it more up on it that I'm not going to talk about here in this podcast. So head on over there to that address and read up a little bit more. So on to the topic of the day: computers in your ham shack. Now, computers 20, 30 years ago weren't that big of a thing. Well, no, let me take that back. They actually were big in the physical sense. Nowadays, computers are a whole lot smaller. They're a whole lot more powerful. And, more than likely, you have 2 or 3 of them. You probably have a laptop or a desktop or a tablet, a phone. All those are computers, just with different operating systems. So why not use a computer to make your life so much easier in your ham shack? So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what you can do with your computer in your ham shack, different features, different uses, different functions, and all that good stuff. So let's move right in there, okay? First off, the first thing that really comes to mind is logging, okay? When I first started this hobby, yeah, I had a computer. I'm not that old. Maybe. I'm only 36, so I actually had a computer growing up. My very first computer was actually like this Radio Shack all-in-one computer that had an 8-track tape on the side of it that you used to boot it off of, and you recorded stuff on a little data cassette tape. I mean, that was my first computer, and I wrote programs on it and took messages from my dad and his business and stuff like that. But anyways, things have gotten a whole lot more complicated and a whole lot faster than way back then. So, but anyways, get a little off topic there. But, when I first started in the hobby, the first thing that I did when I got on HF was, I had to have some kind of log. Well, I didn't really like the free ones that they had out at the time, so I had to do the paper one. I am a computer guy. I graduated with a computer degree. I did it most of the way through high school, but I couldn't find anything that I liked, and I didn't feel like writing one, so I just did the paper thing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that do basically the same thing. They had the paper log. Well, if that was all well and good for just a regular, every night QSO or whatever, talking to Joe Smo over in Timbuktu or something, that was all fine, all well and good. You trade QSL cards with them, you have your nice little log there, but what happens when you do a contest or, some kind of like field day? What happens then? That's a lot of writing. My first field day, we had something like 6,000 contacts or something, if memory serves. I may be blowing it out of proportion, but it was a lot of contacts. And, we had to write each one of those call signs. And then after field day was over, or after the contest was over, we had to go back and, go through there and make sure we didn't have any that were duplicated, that, we talked to more than once, but we actually found one of them that we talked to like 4 times over the 24-hour period. So they were probably on paper too. But, nowadays you can use logging programs that you type in the call sign and it'll tell you if you worked them or not during the field day or during the contest or whatever. It'll tell you whether you worked them or not. So you don't have to waste your time getting their information. They don't have to waste their time getting your information if you've already worked with each other. Now, another feature of the logging programs is you type in the call sign and it goes out on the internet. If you have an internet connection, it goes out on the internet and gets all their information. It gets their name, their address, all that stuff they can download from QRZ or from different websites. So that's a good functionality. And a little bit later, we're going to talk about another little functionality that deals with logging, but we're going to skip that for right now. So, as far as logging goes, there are several different ways to do it. There is the, quote, offline method, which is basically a piece of software that's sitting on your computer. You're running it from your computer, and you don't have to be connected to the internet to do it. And it's great for things like contesting, field day, soda, any events where you don't have internet. And granted, I know that's kind of hard to believe sometimes now because the internet's pretty much everywhere, but there are those times. So there's also the other, or the opposite form of this, which is the online logging. Now, probably the most common one is the ARRL's Logbook of the World. The second one is probably ETH007.net. That's Edward Queen Sam Lincoln.net, just to be clear. Now, Logbook of the World is probably the hardest to log into, or the hardest to get started on, from what I understand and from what I've read. It's a very hard process to get logged into it and get you a username and password and all that good stuff. It's a very lengthy process, and maybe one day down the road I'll do a blog post on it. So check back for that if you're trying to get it and can't get it. But when you're doing, and the reason that I mentioned Logbook of the World specifically is because that when you're doing a contest here in the United States and it's sponsored by the ARRL, that's probably what they're going to use to confirm the contacts. And the National Parks on the Air event that's going on all year this year in 2016, that's what you have to confirm your contacts is. You have to use Logbook of the World in order to get your points. If you're chasing points or whatever, if you're doing activations, you have to have Logbook of the World, because that's the way that they're going to confirm that those contacts actually were made. So if you don't have it, it'd probably be a decent idea to go ahead and get it. Now, I believe that the Logbook of the World is just internet-based. I'm not exactly sure if they actually have a offline version of it, but I do know that there are several software logging programs out there that you can use offline, and then once you are connected to the internet, you can upload your log to Logbook of the World with just like a click of a button. So it's good to have for confirming QSOs, but you don't actually have to go online to do that. Now, I can't say how hard it is to sign up. I can't say how hard it is to use, what the best logging program is, or whatnot. Unfortunately, I rarely have the privilege of spreading my my extra class wings on HF because I have 4 kids, and my office where my HF station was set up at is now a bedroom. Hopefully here in the next couple months, now that I will be moving into a bigger house, I'll actually have a ham shack again. I cannot wait, and actually will be able to do these recordings in my ham shack in a computer, or at a computer, where I don't have to do bukus and bukus of editing after I'm done to get rid of all the background noise and the fan noise that I have on this laptop. I'm just absolutely going to love it. Anyways, on to the next topic. Kind computers, you got to have them for digital communications. We've been talking about digital communications now for the past, 6 episodes. This is the 7th episode that we've been talking about digital communications. The last couple of them have actually been, things like RIDI, Packet, Amtor, Pactor, Gtor, all the Tors, Olivia. There's several of them out there, and probably the most popular is the RIDI and Olivia and maybe Pactor. Maybe. Again, I don't get on HF very much, so I'm not really sure. But you can check out a couple of the links that I have in the show notes today to read further on the digital communications part of computer use in your shack. Now, one of the things that I find really cool about computers and their use in the ham shack is a thing called rig control. Now, if you've never done this, this is basically what it is, okay? I'm sure that you've seen your kids or your grandkids or your friends' kids or you having a remote control car. You have this little box in your hand, you have 2 little joysticks, and you're driving this car all over. Well, it's basically the same thing, except for that when you have your radio hooked to a computer. Now, granted, most of the time this is the high dollar HF things, HF radios that have the remote control features through a computer. Then, basically it has like this virtual representation of the front panel of your radio, and you can do everything from your computer. So you could have your radio stuck off in some cabinet somewhere or in the trunk of your car or whatever, and have a computer sitting in front of you allowing you to control every aspect of it. You can change the frequency, you can change the power output, you can change the filters, whatever, all from your computer screen. And another nice feature of this, hooking it to your radio, is that certain logging programs can actually take that information, or take information from your radio rather, and use it. You type in the call sign of the person that you're talking, and it'll go out to your radio, and it'll get the frequency, it'll get the band, it'll get the time that the time. Of course, they're going to get it from itself, but the power output that you have, all the information that might go on a log, it can get from your radio. And the rest of it can get from the internet if you have connected. So all you gotta do is type in the call sign, and you're pretty much done, and that's it. Now, not only can you do this on your local radio that's sitting on the desk beside you, but you can also do it remotely from like a repeater site or your closet in the other room or whatever. You can do this remote control from just about anywhere as long as you have a connection. You can have a connection over the internet or something to a repeater site or a remote base site or something like that, and log into your computer. It'll show you the screen and everything. You can change the frequency just as easy as you can with sitting next to you. So you could actually be changing the frequency on your radio on the mountain, about 10,000 feet above you or something like that, if you live in a valley, in your PJs, in your ham shack down in the valley where you can't get out. So that would be really, really cool to do if you lived in the valley and you had a tower on top of the roof, on top of the mountain ahead above you. Similar to rig control, is something along the lines of like controlling your antennas. You can hook your antenna to your computer, and if you have the little dial on your computer, you can manually change it. If you're doing things like let's say like you're doing things like satellite work, okay? If you've ever done satellite work, it takes I think it's 14 minutes where I live in Texas to go from horizon to horizon with most satellites or with the International Space Station. So you're pretty much constantly having to move your antenna, up and left or up and right and whatever to track it across the sky. Well, you can load up a satellite tracking program on your computer, hook your rotors to it, both your horizontal rotor and your azimuth rotor, and your computer will automatically adjust those two rotors to keep the satellite where it's supposed to be exactly. Again, computers are there to make our lives easier. So, other than things that connect to your radios, or other than logging or stuff that we've talked about so far, there's other uses for a computer in your ham shack. Let's say you're talking to some guy somewhere for the first time, and you didn't quite catch his name. And you don't want to look like the fool that asked him for his name again, or you've been talking for 10 minutes and for the life of you can't remember what his call sign or his name was. You can go onto QRZ.com, type in his call sign, and it'll give you his name or her name, whoever you're talking to. So you don't look like that fool that forget their name like I do quite often. I'm terrible at names. I'm good at faces, but terrible at names. So, let's see, what else can you use with computers? Okay, one of the hardest things that I find sometimes is the conversion between UTC time and my local time. I do ham radio stuff sometimes, and I do other things like gaming and stuff like that. And one of the games that I use UTC time. So I always had a hard time figuring out, okay, what time is it going to be in my time? But as far as ham radio goes, most of the time you record your contacts in UTC time. And you do that because if you're talking to somebody over in Japan and they say, okay, well, my time is 10:52 in the morning and your time is 11:32 at night, then you got to figure out the difference when you're trying to confirm it, and if you're off or they're off, then you might not get it confirmed. So just use UTC time. Everybody knows how far they are away from UTC time. Now, if you don't want to figure it out, you don't want to think, okay, well, I'm 5 hours behind UTC time, and do this every time you make a contact. You can actually install a little program on your computer that pops up a digital clock with UTC time and your local time. You can do that. It's fairly easy, and they're free a lot of times. So, another use of computers, okay? When I'm on HF, and like I said a couple times already, I don't get on HF very much, and I haven't been for a while. Before I was in extra class, when I was a general, and when I was a Tech Plus, well, even now I still don't remember the frequencies, but if I hear somebody calling CQ on some frequency that I'm scrolling through while I'm going through the band, and I can't remember, okay, well, is that frequency within my privilege? Granted, now I'm an extra, so it doesn't matter much as long as I'm within the band, but when I was a general, it did, or when I was a technician, it really did. So rather than filling up your wall behind your station with a big old frequency chart, put it on your computer. When I first got mine, I had this. I went and digitized the frequency map, or the frequency chart that I got when I got my license, I think. One of those freebie band plans that you get from W5YI or ARRL. And I went and scanned that in. I went and I figured out which bands that I would use. I only had at the time a 20 and the 40 meter ham stick. So those are the only two that I really used. So those were really the only ones I cared about. So I scanned the band plan in. I took and I cropped out everything but the 20 and the 40 meter band plan things, and then I blew it up a little bit to make it a little bit bigger and a little easier to see. And I put some other kind of different things together, and I made a desktop image that I had a whole bunch of different sheets, I guess, for ham radio. I had the band plans on there. I had a list of the Q codes on there. I had a list of zones on there. I had a whole bunch of different things, and I made it the desktop of my computer. So if I ever wasn't sure, all I had to do is minimize everything on my desktop, which is really easy to do. A simple keystroke. You don't have to go up there and manually click the minus sign in every program. If you hold down the Windows key and hit the letter M, everything on your computer minimizes. And then you hit it again and everything you had open comes back up. So if I wanted to find out if that person that's calling CQ was on my frequency, I would just hit Windows M, look on my desktop screen. Yep, they're in there. Desktop M again, or Windows M again, and everything I have would be back up. My logging program would come back up, everything. So, computers are there to make your life easier, okay? If you got them, use them. If you don't understand them, find somebody that does. One of the things that we have here in the amateur radio community is Elmers, okay? Now, most of the time you think, okay, well, an Elmer is somebody that's been in the hobby for a while and knows what they're doing, and it's that I can learn from. Well, that's not always the case, okay? It could be some young guy or young girl that just came into the hobby but are really good at computers and can teach those that aren't good with computers how to work them. Well, guess what? That makes them an Elmer. There you go. So find somebody that's good with computers. They'll teach you how to use a computer in your shack. You can teach them how to do ham radio while you're at it. You can both be an Elmer to each other. So I guess that's pretty much it that we're going to talk about as far as computers in your shack. Next week we're going to be kind of extending on this a little bit. We're going to be diving a little bit deeper into computers, but we're going to be talking about what they call small computers. We're going to be talking about things like Raspberry Pi. No, not the food, the computer. A BeagleBone Black, and a Arduino. Now, there's several projects that I've found on there for each of them that deal with amateur radio. So we're going to be talking about them a little bit, and just like this one, I'm going to have further reading on my website so you can get more information about it than you can hear on this podcast. So I guess that about wraps it up for this episode. On to our spotlight for this episode. The amateur radio spotlight for this episode is the Rocky Mountain Ham Radio Group. So here we go. So this week's amateur radio spotlight is going to be on the Rocky Mountain Ham Radio Group. You can find them at www.rmham.org/WordPress. That's www.rmham.org/WordPress. Now, I will have links to all these links that I'm going to be talking about in our show notes today at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/7, or just 7, just the number 7. Anyways, they have a Facebook group or a Facebook page as well, so you can find them on there. Links again in the show notes. The Rocky Mountain Ham Radio Group is not your traditional club. Okay, they're not. They actually, if I remember right from their website, they actually only have like one meeting a year, and that's it. Now, they have social events and stuff like that to get together and stuff, but as far as business meetings go, they have like once a year. That would kind of be cool. But this radio club is, like I said, it's not like other ones. It's actually a support club for other clubs in Colorado. Okay, they have bunches of repeaters that they own, and as well as partner with other clubs to put up and maintain and stuff like that. They have 5 440 machines that are analog. They have one on the Critchell Mountain. They have one on Squaw Mountain. They have one on Thornodin Mountain. I'm probably not saying that right. One on Lookout Mountain and one on Lee Hill. They only got one on the hill. The rest are on mountains. That's pretty bad. Anyways, those are all 440 ones. You can find those on their website. But they also have something else, okay? Several episodes ago, I did a episode on digital mode radios. And one of the things that I said was that I didn't think that digital mode radio would really take off here in the United States. And I'm saying now that I might be wrong, okay? This group, Rocky Mountain Ham Radio here, has a pretty massive amount of DMR radios, or repeaters. And from what I'm looking at, it's actually a fairly decent sized digital network. So that just puts one more player in the digital voice mode repeater user range thingy, which just irks me. But anyways, they have a fairly large digital mode radio repeaters in their system that they own or maintain or whatever. Well, they also have something that's very unique, okay? Not only do they have the repeaters, but they also have the linking too. Okay, most of the time your repeaters will be linked to other repeaters over the internet, right? I mean, that's the general way that we think about it. But they've actually gone and taken it a step further. They have all their repeaters linked, well, I don't know about all of them, but they have a massive microwave linking system. And these links go from all the way from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and link these repeaters and stuff together. So they will always be connected if they so need to be. They, kind of from what I understand, they're always going to have internet because they can go through this microwave link. And all this is done through volunteers in the club, maintaining it, putting up donations that are brought in from the club, and events and stuff that they do. So I mean, it's all done by, anybody can really do this. It's all commercial equipment that they buy. They have to rent the towers and stuff, I'm sure, but nevertheless. But anyways, other stuff that they have a command trailer that you can borrow, I guess. You can put in a request on their website to use the command trailer. And the command trailer has things like satellite connection. It has satellite phone. It has voice over IP phone. It has a data connection. It has HF, VHF, UHF, digital, analog. It has all sorts of stuff in this thing. And their whole purpose is to have it for other clubs to use it. They have a communications van as well. It's from the picture that I saw, it looks like maybe a late 80s, early 90s model van, something like that. But it has a big old satellite dish on top where you can do satellite transmissions on it. They have portable generators. They have portable repeaters. I mean, full unit repeaters, the duplexers, the repeaters, the radios, all that in one little nice, neat little package that you can take and use and set up wherever. They have a whole bunch of stuff that they lend out to other clubs, and that's just so awesome. So they're like a emergency supply club for Colorado. That's so cool. So the other thing that they do is they have what they call a RM Ham University. I'm sure that's like Rocky Mountain Ham University. And basically they give classes in several different locations, probably all over the state. You know, if you call them and ask for a presentation, they'll probably come to your club and give one. But then they take these presentations and put them on their website for the rest of the world to see. And you know, I just love that. I love it when clubs do that. They give presentations. They have they put the PowerPoint up, they put the PDF file up, whatever, on their website so that other people can see it. I mean, it's so awesome. You know, the camaraderie ship and everything. But anyways, that about wraps it up for this episode. So I guess until next time, I will talk to y'all later. 73. Hey everybody, once again I'd like to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Everything Ham Radio podcast. If you like what you heard here, head on over to our website. There's lots of information there that I'm sure you're going to love. You can find it at everythinghamradio.com. While you're there, subscribe to get emails on when I publish a new post or a new podcast. You can click on the subscribe button at the top of the page or go there directly at everythinghamradio.com/subscribe. Also, like me on Facebook at facebook.com/everythinghamradio and follow me on Twitter at K5CLM. Also, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to this podcast, like it, share it with your friends, help me spread the word. So until next time, 73.